Welcome to episode 14 of the Expert Cruise Show. I'm Anthony, he's Chris, and it's time to take you to sea with another dose of your weekly cruise obsession, which is debriefing on past cruises, looking forward to future cruises, and just kind of getting under the skin of what really goes on board. Now, we thought this episode we'd make it a little more special by taking advantage of your amazing comments and suggestions and experiences that you've posted in the comments section below our YouTube video and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and elsewhere. But first, Chris, you have an unboxing, and I know that unboxing videos do very well on YouTube, so hopefully this will get us a few more hits.
So I got this this box in the post, and viewers of the channel might know that for a little while now we've had a promo code going out there for the cruise maps. So it's a wonderful website actually where you can track your cruises that you've done, past voyages, and it shows all the routes based on the AIS data. So it's like 100% accurate of where the ship went. So sometimes when they do strange like laps overnight, or it has to make a detour or whatever, it shows all that up, and you can buy these as prints, or you can put them in an album online as well. But they've also just released a new range of Queen Mary II prints, and I know you have one, but mine has just arrived.
Well, I saw this on board Queen Mary II when I was on board recently. It's in the library in a kind of vintage style gold frame. And it just looks so good in the Queen Mary II library that I thought, I wonder if it's going to look as good on the wall at home. And the great thing about these are hand-drawn images, aren't they? That are...
I mean, this is what it looks like.
There it is.
I mean, it
is expertly done. I didn't even realize this was a whole industry, like people who draw, maritime artists. Who actually draw the ships in their early design stages, and obviously this is once it's complete. This is the original design, though. This isn't after the 2016 upgrades where an extra deck 13 was added. And
no, you're right, actually. Yeah.
Right, a few tweaks. This is the original design.
You can actually see a few of the changes because, as you say, there's no deck 13 up there, but also the bow thrusters still have doors on them, which of course have since been removed from Queen Mary II. But yes, it's mine's going to have to get framed and go up on the wall. They're printed locally in many countries. So,
well, my advice, which you haven't taken, although I don't know that I gave you this advice, and that is that it's such a weird shape that I bought mine framed because I knew that finding a custom frame that shape is going to be more expensive than they were charging for frames.
Yeah.
So that's why I did that.
The wonderful people at the Cruise Maps sent me this one, and at the time that they ordered it, I don't think that they were doing the framing in Australia, and I think you can also order them on board the Cunard ships. But for this channel, we have a promo code. It's Chris Frame Official, which is the handle of the channel, and you get a discount with that. So we'll put all the details in the description, and you can check that out.
It's ironic that your name is Frame and you didn't get a frame. I really feel that there's something went wrong in translation there.
Well, in this room that I record in, there's just framed pictures of the ships everywhere, so I always feel I'm amongst family because of that's the worst. The worst joke ever.
All right, well, let's turn to some of our viewer comments because we've been really buoyed to choose a maritime.
Very nice.
Buoyed, yes. In fact, if you're an American, do you know the Americans? Yes. Well, they call it a buoy. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, I think they're taking up that U in the middle of the word there. Buoy.
That's right. Whereas the British English version is a buoy, and it's the same with quayside. They say quay. Have you heard them say that?
No, I haven't. No, quay. Okay, well, I'm not going with that one. I'm sorry, but
well, it might just be people not knowing and reading it. I've kind of heard it read aloud, and certainly kind of AI voices on YouTube video get it wrong. They pronounce it quay, but obviously it's quay and it's quayside, Quuay. But let's not get into that right
Anyway.
now. We thought this episode we'd make it a little more special. If you hear your name read out, then thank you in advance.
The first one, Anthony, is all the way back from episode 1. And the comments from Chak06880. And they say, Anthony gives great objective advice, comments and feedback. So, of course, episode 1, we spoke a lot about Cunard. Hey, Cunard, please listen to Anthony. Cunard needs to give a serious nod to Cunard's heritage and his comments are so right that passengers of all ages want an authentic Cunard experience, not a mismatch of experiences from other lines. Well said. Thank you. I like the idea of Cunard's Queen Anne, but make it better.
Well, that's because in episode 1 we talked about the maiden transatlantic crossing of Queen Anne, which I was on, my 4th Cunard transatlantic maiden voyage. And yeah, we basically both agreed that as beautiful as Queen Anne is, and she is a beautiful ship, certainly on the inside, but it's as if they're trying to hide away the heritage. And of course, the other 3 Cunard ships, it's everywhere. It's in every elevator lobby. It's wherever you go. There are beautiful prints and historic trails that you can even do, certainly on Queen Mary 2, that educate you about the history of Cunard that goes back 185 years. So why wouldn't you be proud of that? It's the real thing. And I'm sure Cunard are listening.
Well, I know for a fact that they have heard that episode and they have taken the feedback on board. So they are aware of the thoughts, and they also are aware of our offer to support them if they should ever need it. So fingers crossed. Yeah. And it wouldn't take much to bring her closer to the family than she currently is. It wouldn't take much.
That's right. And you already helped name some of the suites on board, so you do have that relationship where some of your work has actually appeared on the ship, let alone your books appearing on the ships. And so and I've always, my experience and background is very much, growing up in hospitality and understanding about how a proper afternoon tea is delivered. I noticed on Holland America line, which I'm investigating at the moment because I've never been on it and I want to go on it, and they do an afternoon tea, but they describe it as a high tea.
High tea.
And that's actually something else. A high tea is not really an afternoon tea. A high tea is a bit more substantial. It's more of a luncheon, It's about getting the details right, and Cunard is so good with afternoon tea. But I would love them to go a little bit further, to explain to people that you don't slice a scone with a knife. A scone has to be pulled apart.
Broken, yeah.
Right? Whereas Holland America line, as far as I know, I just watched a Ben and David video. They were on board Holland America for the first time, and the scones were delivered like already packed with the jam and the cream inside, and I was like, oh, I don't know if my wife's gonna like that.
You know what's funny though about that is that's how they used to do it on Kiwi 2 all those years ago.
Really?
The scones would come out already made. You could request one that was like not done. But the thing I think is really nice about Cunard, because Cunard is a brand that has been based in Britain for so long, it's quite nice that there's a line that's still authentic, because it has been doing it continuously, different owners, but continuously for 185 years.
Yeah, that's so true. All right, let's get back to the comments, because there's so many to get through.
Yeah, well, our friends Rich and Helen from the Visit With Us YouTube channel, both of whom I actually met on board Queen Anne during the maiden voyage, they dropped us a message on episode 1. It said, we can't wait to make this a regular listen/watch. FYI, currently typing this from the beautiful QE somewhere in Japan. Our 17th Cunard cruise, and then a very large smiley face at the end. Yeah, 17.
Well, I should say that I'm a bit of a Rich and Helen fanboy. Rich has I should call him Richard, because I don't know him, and I hate to abbreviate when I don't know somebody, but he has the most fantastic speaking voice, the most mellifluous speaking voice. And I love listening to his voiceover when he does these videos. He also has fantastic hair as well, so maybe I'm a little jealous of the hair. And they actually put out an AI video of them both being much younger recently. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
I just thought it was wonderful to see. I was a bit confused. It was so good.
I love the bloopers at the outtakes at the end when
me too.
The AI Helen kicks somebody. It's
that's right. That's right. Then she climbed up a wall or something.
Yeah.
So it's important that the influencers and the vloggers in cruise land understand that we are here to kind of support you and share your message. We love the vlogs. And we don't really make vlogs ourselves. Occasionally we do, but that's not really our business. We're here to kind of debrief and analyze in this beautiful setting, and all of these images that we sit in front were all taken on ships that we've been on recently. So that kind of lends a level of authenticity to it, I guess. But big fan of Rich and Helen, and I wish them continued success with their channel. The next one comes from Amy at Cruise Crazed Fam Channel. She referred to episode 3. Great to watch, guys. I would love to try some of the authentic ocean liners. It would be a very different to the experience, the typical cruise experience that we're used to. You're right about younger people wanting the more vintage and historic experience. Well, 100%. That kind of goes back to our recommendations to Cunard. Don't be shy about it. And, you go to a vintage fair or people wearing vintage clothes. I mean, people want stuff from the past, the real thing people crave. And so anything that reflects that and brings back a level of authenticity. And I guess that's why our kind of original QM1 episode was so popular, because,
100%.
You were on board the original Queen Mary from 1936, a ship that basically set the standard for not just ocean crossings, but certainly the cruising industry as well. And, the original is always the best. Now, the next message is a very exciting one for both of us, isn't it?
Yes.
Which episode was this one from?
Episode 2, I think it was.
Episode 2, that's right. We talked about Queen Mary 2's passenger space ratio, didn't we?
Yes, 100%,
And saying how it feels on Queen Mary 2 like it's so much more space, and there's only 2,500 passengers, but it's a 150,000-ton ship, and it just feels so grand and vast, and you're never really bumping into people or crossing people on the stairs. Like there's room for everyone. And so we got a message from Stephen Payne, OBE. This is the actual naval architect of Queen Mary 2, who we now know is a big fan of the show, especially that episode. And he actually said that Queen Mary 2's gross tonnage space ratio is distorted by the fact that the main public room decks are 4.5 meters high steel to steel rather than 3.5 to 3.8 meter height of many cruise ships. This extra height disproportionately distorts the space ratio number based on gross tonnage. A more realistic measurement would be square meter of public space per passenger.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
That is fascinating, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't change the how we might feel on board, but he's right. Those having decks 2 and 3 as effectively double height, or as it feels like double height, gives the impression that you're on a much larger vessel.
Because of the height, you don't feel crowded, you don't feel like you're being smothered by the ship, and that makes such a huge difference.
Isn't it great how we kind of keep coming back to Cunard in our conversation?
No, we're a bit addicted.
It's our kind of happy place.
Yeah, and the Cunard Love Fest, though, Anthony, is coming to an end now, because we go to episode 4, which was all about the retreat. And I think this is probably the most controversial episode that we've had, the one that has the most mixed comments. There's probably about 40% of people agree potentially that the retreat isn't great, but you've got a lot of comments of people who are quite had quite a different opinion to yours on the retreat,
which is fine. We should probably start with that.
Of course,
we want people to feel free to express themselves. Cruising is so subjective. I was on board the Celebrity Edge when we recorded that episode.
Yeah.
So I was kind of full of the, whatever emotions I was having. We got this upgrade that we paid for on the Celebrity Move Up, and we got into the Celebrity Retreat for just a steal, really, a quarter of what it would have cost normally, or even less, actually. And so I'm very much a steerage passenger, as you know, and I was disappointed. So I was expressing myself quite passionately.
No, and quite
Gary though referred to me as a negative Nelly, which I'll take. I was a negative Nelly in that moment. He said, I disagree with almost everything you have to say. Too bad the butlers weren't trained at the official school of butlers. Fine.
Is there an official school of butlers? I suppose there is.
Well, there are actually official butler schools in some places, but I suppose the issue I had was that the butlers weren't even trained in anything.
fair enough.
It did seem, and some other people have posted this since, that they also agreed that the butlers seemed a little surplus to requirement.
Sure.
And I just don't feel, the service industry, it's a whole topic to discuss. I have a lot of experience in it, and I just feel like calling people butlers, to me, it kind of highlights the servitude aspect of it. Everything that they were offering. I mean, my butler was very sweet, the nicest guy. And I hate to say my butler or our butler. It's so embarrassing to me, but there we are. But everything that he offered, he kind of got wrong. Like when we asked for reservations at certain times, he said, yes, that's fine, it's done. And then we get to the restaurant and they didn't know anything about it. It was just like, it was inconsistent.
Sure.
And you'll have to go back to the episode on the celebrity retreat and relive it. But remember, I was on board when we recorded that, and I was filled with the bile of having paid this extra $1,400.
Well, the other thing we've had quite a bit in terms of that episode is people who have said things like Joe here. Hi guys, I understand that you don't see the value, but that's because the retreat is designed for Caribbean cruising, where the ship is the destination. On a crowded pool deck, the retreat is, well, a treat. Ample seating, no loud music, no crowds, upgraded, quick bites. So, I mean, that's the hardest part about a ship within a ship offering, though, is that if the ship is moving around the world, as they tend to do, the ship within a ship offering has to be relevant regardless of where the ship is. So, yes, maybe it shines in the Caribbean, but it should still be equal value when it's in Alaska.
That's right. I was on an Alaskan cruise. It was cold and wet outside, so of course the retreat sun deck wasn't really used, but the retreat lounge was. Yep. And that place had no atmosphere, and there was all sorts of problems, including paper cups for afternoon tea. So it's they don't have a great record in that area. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that if you it's like, it's not even for the super rich, because the super rich don't go on cruises. They've got their own yachts.
Yeah, sure.
So I just couldn't understand who it was for, I guess.
Yeah.
So Bunker posted a message about the same episode and said the food is better, the service is better, the retreat areas are far superior. By the way, Lumine can be better. You have to communicate with the wait staff your personal preferences, and they listen. That's right, because I was saying that the food in Lumine, which is the retreat restaurant, I mean, my biggest beef with that was the fact that the restaurant was hardly open.
Yeah.
And so its windows of open were so narrow that you ended up just going to the main dining room or to the buffet in the end, or getting room service. And really, if they want to do anything that makes it feel like an elevated experience, to have your own restaurant and your own table that is open all morning, all day, and all night.
If anything, you would think it would be open more, right? Because it's like for the people who've paid the most.
Get rid of the butlers and keep Lumine open for from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's, for me, that's a better use of the spend. I guess.
Yeah. JC Stewart said, it's interesting that one of the things you liked least was a high level of service and attentiveness. If you want to be alone, the retreat really isn't for you. And to be honest, it sounds quite wasted for you. I think perhaps that's referring to your comment about not that the service was too attentive. As I understood it, you were saying that it wasn't just an attentiveness, but it was
over the top.
An over the top need to keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you really good service is about less, is about, being waiting staff being so on the ball that they can literally spot that your coffee cup is empty and, or you've taken your last sip, and then they can fill it. They don't come over to you and say, do you want another cup of coffee? They just fill it quietly and silently. And I suppose that's a very basic example of what I'm talking about. It was so obvious. The service was so obvious. Go on to what
speaking
what
about coffee
next.
cups. I mean, this made me laugh because you were talking about that they were serving tea in coffee mugs,
right.
And Jonathan, you held up the mug from the cup, the teacup from the ship, and Jonathan's written that's a mug, not a cup.
That's right. Well, in the pecking order of cups and mugs, that's closer to a cup than it was a coffee cup, put it that way.
Yeah.
But it's, again, everything is subjective. And, I'm very passionate about this subject. And people... Do you know, my family refer to me as a large scoop of a strong flavor, and so that's what you're going to have to get used to.
And SL4193, who's a wonderful regular supporter of the channel that often sends comments. Thank you, Chris and Anthony. My no was in sync with Chris at the use of plastic cups for tea in the retreat. Such an informative video, lots to consider. Looking forward to the next expert cruise discussion. So, yeah, I was. You were saying how they couldn't bring you a teacup, so they brought it to you in a
paper cup, like a takeaway Starbucks style cup.
No.
For English people, we like a nice big cup of tea. We don't want to drink it out of a thimble. And because they had coffee cups are invariably much smaller, more for espresso. And so I was like, "What have you got that's bigger?" And they were like, "It's the takeaway cup, which is like Starbucks style."
Yeah.
So. Look, I just don't want people to waste their money. That's all. And the celebrity edge class. Yeah, celebrity edge class of ships are so high-end. They are so chic. They're so stylish. Every room is the same. And even if you get a standard ocean view on deck 3, which is my recommendation, by the way, I think they're the best rooms on the ship in terms of location and value. The furnishings and the finish is identical to the Sky Suite for those of us in the retreat. They're like, nothing is different. The room is 100 feet bigger. I have 2 Edge ships booked. I have the Beyond booked, and I have the Edge next year. Actually, they're both next year. And the Edge that I had booked, the price for the ocean view, I was in a specific ocean view cabin. I like to be kind of aft near the restaurants. I think that's the best place to be on the Edge class.
Yep.
And I noticed that the price went down because I get these alerts saying the price had gone down. So I looked to see how many rooms were left, and there were only 4 ocean view rooms left, and they were all in quite good locations. So I called Celebrity and I said I'd like to change my booking from being a specific ocean view to an ocean view guarantee. Well, it saved me $300, and the chances are I'm going to get just another ocean view room somewhere that's just as good.
I just have this image, or this thought in my head when you talk about calling the cruise lines, where it's like, that you're on the phone and it's sort of, welcome to Celebrity Cruises. For new bookings, press 1. For existing bookings, press 2. If you're Anthony Davis, press 3. Because you're hags, you have to change your booking so many times, but you get so much saving.
Right. Well, I told you, didn't I? I just did it with the airlines. I had a flight alert that said the price of the flight had gone down. And so in the US, invariably, if you book a flight and you cancel it, you click cancel on the app, it just credits you with that amount. So that I rebooked exactly the same flight 10 seconds later and got it at the lower price and had $54 in my credit account to use for future flights. We should actually say, because both you and I are huge aviation geeks as well, av geeks as well.
So if you're watching this and you also love aviation, let us know in the comments, because it will give us suggestions maybe and hints as to whether we should do something about aviation in the future.
Sounds like a good idea.
So
go ahead.
Episode 5 was all about Norwegian Cruise Line. And it was a big deep dive on NCL and all about the NCL ships. And of course, I was talking about Norwegian Spirit, which had a $100 million refurbishment. And Adrian, the cruise and travel guy, left us a comment because we also spoke about the cruise community and how, for the most part, the cruise community is very, very supportive, and that we all sort of look out for each other, and we appreciate other vloggers and other cruise shows and other people who are doing podcasts. So Adrian, who's got a cruise and travel YouTube channel, he said, fantastic conversation as always. As someone who pored over brochures and books long before YouTube was a thing, so I can relate to that, I'm sure you can as well. I love the nitty gritty details that you both recall with such ease. Thank you, Adrian. And then he said, re Norwegian Spirit, she's one of my favorite ships for many of the reasons mentioned here. Her packaging, size, passenger capacity, variety of public spaces, and comprehensive refit made her an incredible cruise ship in today's world. And he did also just refer to the fact that he appreciates the sense of community that is shared amongst cruise creators. But the funniest part on this one is how he ends the message here. It says, "Chris, I have no idea how you managed to fold yourself into any cruise ship shower." I'm almost 2 meters tall in a metric, or it's about 6 foot 6.5 or so in US measurements. So yeah, cruise ship showers, unless they have an adjustable shower head, they're not designed for me.
Firstly, I want to say that I'm a big fan of Adrian and his channel. I really enjoy his videos. He's so concise, and he has some really nice photography as well, which always helps, doesn't it?
Yes,
if you
absolutely.
kind of have both.
Yeah.
And so I'm thrilled that he's listening. I get terribly starstruck, about when vloggers. I mean, the Rich and Helen one, I can't stop thinking about. I mean, these people are a cruise industry royalty as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, the nuance and the detail. Because my mum loves the cruises as well, and she and I can sit on a FaceTime and talk about the cruises that we're thinking of booking or we have booked for hours and hours and hours. And I just helped her book the Norwegian Bliss, actually, out of San Pedro. And I love that ship, and I was able to kind of, we got down to the minutiae of finding the right room, and I found her a corner balcony that had like a little bit of an extra balcony space because it was on a corner, and I was like, then you'll be able to look down the ship, but it's not overlooked, like doing all the due diligence.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that would never board an aeroplane and be like, oh, God, I've got a middle seat at the back. How did that happen? Do you know what I mean?
Same.
It's like, you can mitigate all the drama if you're prepared to do a little bit of
exit row for me on the plane.
Yeah, you need an exit row. I can fold up easily.
Talking to you, I often think in a parallel universe, you are the leading cruise travel agent, because the detail that you are able to pick up on is just remarkable. Really, it is.
I don't sleep much. I mean, this is the thing, and the other day when I did that Celebrity Edge changeover, I actually was like up in the early hours of the morning, like on the live chat with
well, it's the best time because everyone else is asleep, so you get through without having to wait 25 minutes.
I just love it, and for me, it's like an adrenaline rush. I don't need to gamble in the casino because I've gambled on the cabin already.
Yeah,
it's great.
So the next episode was actually about Princess cruises, and we went on a deep dive of Princess.
Okay, let's continue with your messages. KittyCats26 says Princess is a more luxury brand. Why should it be available for all? That's what TUI, P&O, etc. are for. I think that I don't actually see Princess as a luxury brand.
No.
Isn't that interesting?
I don't think Princess sees itself as a luxury brand either. It's a premium brand. It's not luxury.
It's a premium brand, but it's 100%. Not a luxury brand.
Yeah.
And I mean, even luxury brands, I think you're then getting into like Yachts of Seabourn and the more
Silver Sea and
Silver Sea
Regent,
and the kind of those kind of super yachts, Okay, let's press on. Episode 7 was about the transatlantic crossing.
Yes.
And Dida Work said, thank you for this interesting talk. It's fun to listen to for every ocean liner enthusiast. Since you were wondering about why the length of ships seemed to be important to some people, this dates back to the early 60s when SS France entered service. She was smaller in tonnage than the Queen, so not as fast as the SS United States, but she was the longest liner of her time. Even when converted to the cruise ship SS Norway, her length was still important for marketing reasons when she was topped in tonnage by Sovereign of the Seas as the world's largest cruise ship afloat. That's very interesting intel. You're the maritime historian. I am not. Does that all make sense to you?
100%, yeah. I mean, France was built in an era when the jet aircraft had already proven that it was going to be dominant in terms of transport, and she was built with French government support as basically a showcase of French, style and glamour. And she operated on the North Atlantic as a transatlantic liner, heavily subsidized by the French government. And, she survived the retirement of the Queens, the retirement of the SS United States. She worked in tandem with the QE2 after it entered service. But unlike QE2, which was dual purpose, the France was designed specifically for the Atlantic, and she really struggled to do cruising in her original configuration. Ultimately, fast forward, and the French government sort of reduced and then pulled its funding for the ocean liner because they wanted to invest in other things like the Concorde project. And so the France was laid up. And, everyone thought at that stage that she'd probably sit and lay up for a while and then be sold for scrap. She's relatively new still. It's the 1970s. But the person who actually founded what is now Norwegian Cruise Line, Knut Kloster, he had this vision, and he bought the ship, and they took it to Bremerhaven in Germany, and they converted it into the SS Norway, and basically put cruising elements into it, and it became an absolute hit. And it was the largest cruise ship in the world at the time. It was the longest passenger ship ever built until Queen Mary II entered service. And she lasted until the early 2000s when, tragically, a boiler explosion on board, which actually killed several members of the engineering crew, it basically rendered her unrepairable, and she was ultimately scrapped. But she was very instrumental in the development of that US cruise market.
And a beautiful ship. Just the lines on that ship. What superb. A beautiful looking ship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alexander Lucas 4624 says, best episode so far, highlights key details of what makes a crossing special, why Queen Mary II is awesome, and a great historical reflection. The idea of doing a crossing in a cruise ship, no thanks. Yes, well, we caveated that episode with the transatlantic crossing is not for everyone. But if you are going to do it on the last remaining ocean liner in service, because 100%. You're going to have a much nicer crossing.
And Alex is a long time great supporter of the channel as well, and has a real passion for the ocean liners, but is definitely not going. I've heard from him before. He's not going to go on a cruise ship across the Atlantic.
Right. Yeah. Miriam Hoffman, she posted, "Where are you finding your cheap prices for the crossing?" We did answer that in a later episode, didn't we? And I actually said Cunard was where I found that. I always book through the cruise line. I don't use a travel agent. We were showing that a transatlantic crossing was $509 per person on Queen Mary II. That was a kind of last minute where the ship's going to sail in 10 days' time. They've still got a whole bunch of inside cabins available, and then they just drop the price. So I've often recommended on this show, put the crossing or the cruise in your calendar, but don't book it. Just put a note to remember to keep an eye on the price, and when it becomes the right price, then make your move. Don't feel, just go through the booking process, see how many cabins are available. And so you don't want it to sell out, obviously, but don't rush to book it, because cruise pricing is volatile and you need to buy in the dips.
There's actually certain travel agents as well, though, that are specific for cruise. So there's a big difference between like a general travel agent that's looking after land-based resorts and airlines and cruising and everything. And there's some that are very, very much specific to cruising. And if you find the right one, they can actually find you cabins that aren't available on the main inventory because they've been held for whatever reason. They've got contacts within the cruise line that can help release cabins for shorter segments. So sometimes it does make a lot of sense to use one of those very specific travel agents. There's only a handful, I think, in Australia at least, that have that level of skill. But when we book to, like, if I go on board as a guest speaker and then the family's going to come, we book the second cabin. We will quite often use one particular travel agent comes to mind who has looked after us very, very well over the years as well. Now, here's a funny one. From the one of the legends of cruise vlogging and cruise.
I'm going to get starstruck again, aren't I?
Emma Cruises, you are going to get starstruck. She's literally just written for the transatlantic episode all about transatlantic crossings. No. And then that's it. Ha ha ha. Because she gets seasick, and she got terribly seasick on the Queen Mary II. So I think her answer to the transatlantic crossing is a flat no.
She was coming the other way when I was on Queen Anne in January doing the maiden crossing. She was going the other way on Queen Mary II, doing a more northerly route, wasn't she? And they're really good, those atrium view cabins. They're super fun to be in, but your view is literally of the atrium. You just have to pray that piano isn't playing itself whilst you try to sleep.
No. You know what's interesting about that as well, though, Anthony, is on Emma's video of that atrium cabin, she showed shots of the bathroom, and the fact that the Queen Mary II has glass cigarette ashtrays in the bathrooms caused the most comments, I think, on her video, because people couldn't believe what it was. And it's like, well, you forget, of course, that this ship was built and put into service in 2004.
Yeah.
And throughout the late 2000s, that's when the public views on smoking started to change so much. So she does actually still have ashtrays in the bathrooms.
And Stephen Payne also kind of let slip recently that the reason there were shower curtains on Queen Mary 2 is because glass doors are too heavy, and they kind of priced it up based on how much additional weight it would be to cross the Atlantic at speed and make the schedule. And they decided it wasn't worth doing shower doors. I don't really care about shower doors. I know it's a huge thing for some people, but for me, I'll take the glass door. I'll take the shower curtain. I just like having a wash.
I don't mind. I don't mind it on Queen Mary 2, particularly because the shower cubicle on board is much bigger than it is on many of the other ships. It's quite spacious. So
That's
you have
right.
plenty of space, and it has an adjustable. The bigger one for me, of course, it has an adjustable shower head, so I can actually fit underneath.
Which Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria don't. That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Puppy Breath Wales messages about episode 10, World's Best Passenger Ship, saying, sailed on Queen Mary 2 from the start, and in the Queen's Grill last week we were totally shocked by the total failure of even the basic dress code for an evening in the pub. It really looked like a garden club day out, with the same comments popping up on Cunard's Facebook page from many cruisers. That's very interesting, isn't it? The dress code, not just on Cunard, but on all ships, is becoming less and less important as people embrace the informality of the modern day. I do think that the cruise ship should be enforcing it, especially as we're paying for an extra case to bring all our finest clothing on the ship as well.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this about the pub, is that the pub is one of the areas on the Cunard ships that is allocated informal, even on formal nights. So you can go to the pub,
as is the buffet, right?
Yeah, you can go to the buffet. You can go to several other areas on board.
Rebecca says, thank you both for this amazing chat about Queen Mary 2. I smiled through the whole episode and thought I'd been fortunate to have sailed on her. Though I've been fortunate to have sailed on her many times, I learned some things as well.
Yeah,
that's very, very nice.
Rebecca is a channel member, and I met her recently on a Cunard cruise.
Did you?
Lovely to meet her. Yes,
wonderful. And
then Samuel actually has been very generous, Anthony, because he sent us a $50 US super thanks, which is just remarkable. Wow. So I had to point that one out because it just, I think we were both a little bit blown away.
That is quite the super thanks. I think the least you can do is like $2. So to do $50 is wonderful, and thank you. And if anybody else wants to hit us up with a super thanks, then you can do that down below. It's every little helps, as they say. Freddie says it was incredible attending your lectures aboard Queen Mary 2, Chris. Greeting you personally, having your book signed, and being able to present for Cunard's 185th anniversary on the last ocean liner in existence. You see, I can tell from Freddie PT100 there, Chris, that he totally gets it, right?
100%.
He gets it.
100%.
He feels it in his bones, and that's really the important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just so fun to meet people after the talks. And as this YouTube channel is growing in its own popularity, I find now that more and more people recognize me and want to have a chat about the ships when I board before the first lecture's even presented. And that's a really nice change, because it's just so nice to go on board and immediately be amongst friends. It's so cool. And then we get to episode 13, which of course is our most popular episode so far, actually. The original ocean liner is back. It was all about the RMS Queen Mary. And we've had quite a lot of comments on this one. We've got Grant, who says, the Queen Mary was not just a British ship. She was built on the River Clyde in Glasgow, Scotland. So people are very proud in that part of the world of the amazing ships that they built, Anthony.
Yes. And Doe, that's an interesting name, isn't it? Bodell
DB Odell.
8000. Oh, DB
Yes.
Odell
Yes.
8000. Very good. Says, I wish it was the Queen Elizabeth that was saved. She was even larger and more beautiful. Yes, well, she capsized and caught fire, sadly, so
Yes,
that
right.
wasn't really possible. And
Yeah.
then the transatlantic, gents, what a fabulous endorsement you gave to the fantastic restoration efforts taken on by the city of Long Beach for this gorgeous legendary ship. As a native Californian who's visited RMS Queen Mary perhaps a dozen times, now living 12 kilometers from Southampton and meeting many locals whose relatives worked on or aboard these liners, her preservation means so much.
Yeah.
That's lovely, isn't it? I really feel that there is a lot of love amongst this cruise community for the original Queen Mary. It's definitely one of the reasons why people go on Queen Mary 2 and stick with Cunard is because of the heritage.
Well, give this one, this handle a try, Anthony. It's BTO Mim at Sue Cunard.
I would never have got that.
Well, he's given us a great comment. They've tagged it at 3156 in the Queen Mary episode because we were talking about that random escalator that just disappears into nowhere. Well, this person has actually figured it out. So, hey gents, the elevator you found in Shaft Alley was part of the old tour route that took you back before Urban Commons took over. Going all the way back to when the Mary first opened in Long Beach, there was a specific tour route that started down in the museum area in the bottom of the ship before going up the internal stairwells, both original and newly built for the museum, to the top deck, where the tour would end on promenade deck. So that was part of that access to get you back up through the ship without having to exit the vessel. Fascinating.
Imagine being the planner on that and having enough budget to install an escalator on an ancient ocean liner.
100%.
These days, they'd be like, nah, we don't have the budget for an escalator. People are just going to have to walk up a few stairs. You know what I mean? I think that it just shows how things have definitely changed, especially if they were just doing it for a tour.
Yeah.
Right? It's so interesting to me.
I must say, though.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but when I'm on the Queen Mary and I'm in the engine room and I'm walking through the engine room, I don't want to see an escalator. So
no.
I wish that, given it's out of commission, and I should probably just send this message to the ship, but put some hoarding around it and paint it so it looks like just a wall covering or something, because it just takes you out of that moment when you're in Shaft Alley and you're like, these propeller shafts drove this ship at record-breaking speeds, and that's taking me back to the Mall of the Americas. You know, it's just what is going on?
It does. It makes it look like everything else is fake too.
Yeah.
Great comments today, and continue please to message us, underneath the videos or through Spotify or iTunes or on Instagram, wherever you choose to get in touch. As you can see, we read every comment. We appreciate them all. Even negative comments are taken on board and respected.
Yeah.
And so, please just continue, because this is a community that is growing, that extends clearly beyond cruises into maritime history and ocean liners, and of course Cunard is at the forefront of that. So thank you again.
Thank you. And for anybody who hasn't checked it out already, just a reminder that I've recently launched a Substack which goes into all the maritime history details that maybe don't quite work for a YouTube video, but we can kind of go on deep dives into very specific details on different ships. This was Anthony's idea. Actually, he convinced me to do this, and it's up at themaritimehistorian.substack.com, but I've stuck the QR code up on the screen as well if you're watching this on a TV, which most of you are actually, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I know. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining this episode, the special episode of the Expert Cruise Show, and join us next week for another one when we will again take you to sea. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.